Settings. This is our Settings tab. Under Setting, we're looking at the General page, and we see our site title and tagline. These options were the same options that we were editing when customizing a theme. So site title and tagline here, these were actually updating the general site title and tagline settings on the General Settings page. Below that, we have WordPress URL and site URL. Once you do your WordPress install, these are set up for you. I do not recommend you change this because you can get yourself into some trouble if you change your site address. So let's say you change your site address to something like this. Then what would happen is you try to visit the site at the current address, and then WordPress will redirect itself to this address, which of course is not your site. And then you'll never be able to view your site unless you actually edit the database and change the setting back. So actually you have to be very careful with these settings, and I recommend not editing these. Next, email address. So this is the primary admin email address for the site. Whether it's comment, notification, or new users that have been added in, this email address is used for some of that notification. Next, membership. You can allow others to register with your site. Anyone can register, you can turn that on. And then you can define what role they receive when they register. Now, of course, you would never want to set this up so anyone can register and then set it up to administrator would be their role. More than likely, it would just be subscriber. But if you wanted to change those settings, this is where you would do that. So blogs may use this feature. Anyone can register and allow them to be subscribers. However, if your WordPress install is a CMS only, likely you won't use this. Time zone. This is the time zone that you'd like to set up for your site. This is useful whenever you're doing things like scheduling a post. Then this will interpret that so it publishes on your time zone. By default, it's set to UTC 0, and then you can actually select your own time zone if you would like, just by looking for it here in the list, and then updating these settings. Below that, whenever your date is seen on the site, if it's using the date formatting function within WordPress, you can control how it looks. And so by default it looks like this, but you can choose any other option, or you can use your own. Below that, time format. When time appears, you can control how that looks, or set your own custom look. And then week starts on. If you're using a calendar, you may want to set it to Sunday. By default it's set to Monday. Once you change any of these settings, make sure that I didn't, do that. Once you change any of these settings, you click Save Changes, and that saves the changes. Next, we'll look at writing. Writing, we can convert emoticons like smiley face to graphics if you want to. And then this option allows WordPress to fix any XHTML problems automatically within content. So this is a good option to have. If you're writing HTML in your editor, by default it's off. The default post category, so that you don't actually use uncategorized. If you wanted to have one that is your catch-all, and if you wanted to label that, you could actually do that, and you can actually create a category and then select it from this list. By default, it's set to an uncategorized. Default post format. If post formats are set, you can choose the default one here. By default, it's standard. Default link category, that can be selected here. Press this. Press this is also available here. You can see it again from tools, available tools. And then post via email. This allows you to set up an email account and have WordPress check that account to then post any emails sent to that address. It may be useful in some cases. So you set up your mail server here, your port, login, and password, and then how you would like that post categorized once it is brought in. And then update services. WordPress is not notifying any update services. We can see what that is because of your site's visibility settings. Update services are these ping services that that WordPress hits whenever you create a post. And right now it's not updating any of these because I have my visibility settings to hidden to search engines, and I want to keep that right now. I don't want this site to actually show up in search engines. So for right now, that's turned off. If I wanted to turn that back on, I would do that in the reading area. And then the very last link, search engine visibility. You can actually save that. If I go back to writing, and then now you'll see that when you publish a new post, WordPress automatically notifies the following site update services. So you can get a full list here. But you can separate these by multiple lines, and this would just notify these services whenever you create a post, which is good for search engine optimization. Go back to reading. I'll turn this off. Under reading, the first option is front page displays. Right now it's your latest posts. These are the same settings that are located when customizing a theme under static front page. We can choose to have your posts, meaning your blogs, or a static site or a static page. Those actually update the settings under reading. And so if we wanted to, we can have our front page of the site, meaning the site that is seen whenever we go to this URL. We can have that automatically go to the About Us page. So now when I visit this page, I actually see the About Us page content. Then I can have my posts located on a separate page. So let's say I want to have those on my blog page. Click Save, refresh, and now my home page is essentially the About Us page, and my blog is actually located on the blog page. So this is how you would set up WordPress as a CMS. You would select a front page, select that page you would like to be that front page or your home page, and then if you wanted to use the blog, it's not necessary to use the blog functionality of WordPress, but if you did, you could choose the post page here from this list of pages. Below that, blog pages show at most. Right now we have it set to 10, so whenever I am looking at my blog, I see at most 10 posts. I can set this to 1, 5, however I would like to change it. Let's just do 1 for right now. Refresh. Oops, refresh. And now you'll see that there's only one. Oops. I need to set this back to blog. Save. And now you see that although my sticky post appears there, I now only have 1 post per page. I can set that back to 10. The next setting is for my RSS feed. By default, 10 items show up in my RSS feed. I can set that to be less, I can set it to 5, or I can set it to be more, and I would make that change here. The next item is also for the RSS feed. For each article in a feed to show either the full text or a summary. By default, it's full text. And then below that, search engine visibility, turn that on or off. What I like to do whenever creating a beta site, usually that's located in a subdomain somewhere, I actually turn this off, so that if I'm adding posts or adding content, no services are notified that those are added in, and that subdomain is not picked up by search engines. So I usually turn this off, especially for beta. Whenever you launch a site, of course, you'd want to leave that on. Next, discussion. Settings at the top. Default article settings. Attempt to notify any blogs linked to from the article. So if you write a post, so if you are linking to any blog, then it'll notify those blogs of that link. By default, that's off. The next option, allow link notifications from other blogs, pingbacks and tracebacks. By default, that is on. And then what that means is someone links to you, your blog is notified. And usually that appears as a comment. Allow people to post comments on new articles. By default, this is set to on. If you'd rather not have comments turned on, you would turn that off here. You can also turn it off on an individual basis. So you can have this on by default. And then you could turn a specific post. You could have the comments for that article turned off. Under discussion, allow comments, turn that off, click update. Other comment settings. Comment must fill out name and email. So this is important so that, that a name and email are required for a comment to be submitted. User must be registered and logged in to comment. Turn that on, which means only registered users can actually comment. Next, automatically close comments on articles older than 14 days. This is usually good. You can set this to a higher date if you'd want to, 30 or 60. All this means is that you close the comments for a post if it's an older post. Now, if you want to continue generating comments, if your older posts are relevant, then leave this on. This is just something good if you don't have any spam filtering. This is good to keep this on. That way that you don't have to worry about older posts, because then the comments close eventually, and then you don't have to worry about spam comments for those. By default, that's set to off. Enable threaded nested comments 5 levels deep. So that means that 5 levels deep, you can have users responding one to another in your comments. Break comments into pages with 50 top level comments per page, and the last page displayed by default. This means that that you can actually have your comments segmented by 50 comments in a group, and then you can sort of paginate those comments. And the last page displayed by default just means that the last page of comments is then displayed by default. It also could be the first. How those would be displayed. Underneath, comments should be displayed with the older comments at the top of each page. You could also set this to newer. And so depending on how you'd want to set this up, you might set that to newer and this to first. By default, it's off. Email me whenever anyone posts a comment, and a comment is held for moderation. This is for my user account. So if anyone posts a comment, I get an email, and if a comment is held for moderation, then I also get an email. Below that, before a comment appears, first option, an administrator must always approve the comment. If you want to tightly control your blog, then you may want to turn this on. This means that a user comment must be approved before it appears on the site. Below that, comment author must have a previously approved comment. So that means that the author must have a previously approved comment for it to display without administrator approving it. So these settings can be a little bit tricky to work with. For most sites that I set up, because I use WordPress as a content management system, I usually turn commenting off. If I am setting up a blog and I want to encourage commenting, usually I tightly control it. So I'll leave this so that administrator must approve the comment. I'll leave that off. I leave it like that. I usually have this automatic setting on too, and I set that to maybe 30 or 60 days, depending on the site. Some sites are brochure sites, so maybe blog conversation is not necessarily as important as the content itself, and so turning that off doesn't hurt anything. Comment moderation. Hold a comment in the queue if it contains 2 or more links. This is good, so if you're letting users submit directly to the site without approval, it'll stop any comments that have more than 2 links in the message of that comment from publishing directly to the site without moderation. So that's a useful thing to do. Same thing here with keyword moderation. If the comment contains any of these words in the content name, URL, email, then flag it to be moderated before it actually goes to the site. Blacklist. Comments containing any content name, URL, email address, anything like that. If a comment contains any of those items, it'll be flagged as spam. Avatars. Avatar display. You can choose to show an avatar, and this uses Gravatar to pull the avatars in. Maximum rating is G, meaning non-offensive, and usually we just leave it as that. And then for any users that do not have a Gravatar associated to their email address, then you can choose to have the mystery image, blank, Gravatar logo, any of those other things. And then when those settings are set up, you click Save Changes. Next, media. On the media page, you can change the thumbnail, medium size, and large size. Right now, if you upload an image, the thumbnail size is 150 by 150. Checking this option, crop thumbnails to exact dimensions, the thumbnail crops to 150 by 150 regardless of its actual width and height. So if it was 300 by 600, 150 by 150 is not necessarily proportional, but it will grab the center of that image and crop it down to 150 by 150. Usually this is preferred for thumbnails. Below that, medium size, you set the max width and max height. Any size image will not be beyond 300 by 300 pixels in width or height, although it will be proportional. The same thing for large sizes. Below that, uploading files. Organize my uploads into month and year based folders. By default this is on, and this keeps your media separated in folder systems actually on the server, and then makes it a little bit easier to manage. And then next is permalinks. These are the URLs to your site. By default it uses $P = ID. So let's go to the sample page. And we see that the sample page is at /about/sample-page. And the reason why this is readable instead of being a $= ID number is that we have our URLs or our permalinks based on post name. And so the slug of the page I'm on, so I'm on sample page, the slug of sample page is sample-page. That appears as the URL. Another cool thing about WordPress is because sample pages is a subpage of about, we get this nice nested URL. So we see /about/sample page, which means if I go to about, I actually see the about page, which is nice, and this is a good SEO friendly URL setup. So post name by default is set to default, which is the P = ID, but I recommend post name. And then optionally you can set up URLs for your category and tag. Usually I do not change these at all. WordPress does a great job at the default setup, so I would just leave these as their defaults. And so that is your settings tab. And that is the last video of the series. Thank you so much for watching all this stuff. I hope this helps out a lot. Thanks.